To be honest with you, I'm not a fanboy of Xbox or PlayStation, but if I had to choose, if you asked me to absolutely pick between one or the two, I would pick PlayStation every single time. But now that that's out of the way, let me just say that when the conference completed, whenever I finished watching it, I was thoroughly impressed with what PlayStation was doing. I thoroughly enjoyed everything they showed off, and I will play everything that they did show. But it was after the event, about 2 hours, when we learned that Sony and their exclusives next gen will pretty much be $70 on release. Miles Morales is currently the sole exception, but if you want last gen Spider-Man plus all of its DLCs, you will pay $70 for the Ultimate Edition. So one way or another, you're paying $70 if you haven't played Spider-Man yet. And truth be told, by that time, if you buy it on PS4, it's going to be last gen, and it's going to be cheaper because once next gen comes out, everything on the last gen, or current gen in this case, will take a price dip. But one of the things that stood out to me the most was that Demon Souls, the remake, is going to be $70. Bluepoint Games is working on this. And one of the last few games that they've made, you realize what it was? Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection. They worked on Uncharted, and then they did Shadow of the Colossus. I'm pretty sure Shadow of the Colossus was $40. That's not the point I'm getting to. The point I'm getting to is that Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, has 3 games in it. Every game up to that point that was on console, because Uncharted had a PS Vita, PSP game, one of those. Every major title was remade. For $60, you could have bought it. 3 games. And now they make Demon Souls, and it's $70 for one game. I mean, let's just think of other remakes that have come out with multiple games and released for $60. BioShock, the collection, is another one that comes to mind. 3 games, the whole series, and one $60 remade pack. PlayStation wants you to pay $70 for this one game remake. Like, these are the types of games that I would expect to be like $40. But it was this game that stood out to me the most about how greedy PlayStation is. When you look at the grand scheme of everything, back in the day, video games were around $40 if I'm remembering it right. They were 40 or 50. Well, PS3 comes along and all of a sudden raising the prices to $60 for your standard AAA game. Around this time, I would have been 18, so I would have just been turning an adult. So I wasn't really buying the games previous to this. So when the price hike actually happened, it was just like the normal price for me. Well, now 2 console generations later, it would be like, what, 14, 15 years later, the price hike happens. $10 increase. Put this in perspective, Sony made $3 billion last year. Last year was their second highest grossing year ever. You know what was their first highest grossing year ever? 2018. And based off of what's going on in the world now, you can almost surmise that this year will either be number 1 or number 2. Like, your top 3 years are the last 3 years. So what do you do instead? Instead of being pro-consumer and all of this, you say, you know what, $3 billion is a lot, but what if I told you we could make $10 billion and just say screw the consumer because video game profits are increasing? No, see, that's what the problem with this is. Back then, they were like, well, digital edition games cost the same as physical edition because we're trying to recoup the cost by having to ship out the booklet and the case that the disc comes in. If we didn't have to do that, we could make them cheaper. That wasn't the case because not too long after, when next gen came out, they increased the prices of games to $60 from PS3 to PS4, and this is where they're ending, but they were increased to $60, and somewhere in the PS3 generation life cycle, microtransactions started being added because they said, well, developments are high, cost is too much, and I'm sorry, but these record profits that we're making, These record profits just aren't enough. We used to make millions of dollars, now we're making hundreds of millions, and that's just not good for us. So we have to add microtransactions into this game. And sure enough, come PS4, this is when battle passes and season passes became abundantly clear that they were going to stay. That hundreds of millions of dollars that we were making in profits, video game costs are just too much. We're literally having to pay through the roof for this. So instead of making $700 or $800 million, we're going to give you a battle pass. We're going to keep those microtransactions. We're going to keep that $60 game. We're going to add this battle pass in this video game. And we're going to, instead of making $600 million, we're going to make about $1.2 billion because video game prices, we're just not making enough. Have you heard of the word billions? That is a word that we want to strive for. And don't get me wrong, I understand their business. For the longest part, I was giving Sony the benefit of the doubt. I thought they were pro-consumer. I thought everything they were doing, I understood they were business when they raised the price of PlayStation Plus. Whatever. They had PlayStation Now that was way too expensive. I guess they realized that because they dropped the price. These were pro-consumer moves that was going to help improve things. And then they come and say, no, we're not pro-consumer, we're pro-money. We're pro more money than any company really needs. Like, if you're someone who thinks that billionaires shouldn't exist, I'm on your side. I'm on your side because all you're doing is taking money from people less than you. Some of these people have literal addictions to these games, and that's why they spend thousands of dollars on them each year. Like, there's a reason why Congress people don't like video games. It's because they're predatory. They're predatory in their approach, and they will continue doing this. Instead of being like, hey, we're going to try to mitigate these problems and we're going to try to help take some of these problems out, these microtransactions. Nope. Sorry, buddy. Keep giving us your money. We hope you get better from that addiction. But before you go to rehab, don't forget to buy this spectacular Ultimate Edition that comes with exclusive cars that you cannot get 3 months from now. So before you pay your doctor bill for your addiction, come give us that money, please. But with all of this said, I'm telling you, I'm going to get a PS5. I'm not getting a digital edition. I may get a digital edition for Xbox Series S. Just because if you buy the Game Pass, you are getting so much more for less. Like, you pay $300 for that console, get Game Pass, you're playing all of the Xbox exclusive games. All of them. You get PlayStation 5, you're not getting those exclusive games. Digitally, you're going to have to buy them for $70 yourself. But see, this is where I come into this. I recently started buying the games, and then I will immediately resell them after I beat them. This is why I'm getting the disc edition. Because all in all, between buying The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima, I've spent probably $25 on these games total. Bought them on release, day one, sold them. And I hope that me continuously doing this, my chain reaches dozens of people. The link between me and the current person who has my disc, and I do my due diligence by giving that developer some money. But when you want to increase the prices, I'm just going to reinforce what I'm doing now, and I'm going to make sure this link between the chain that is me and whoever currently has it keeps going. And if it stops somewhere, by all means, it's whatever. But eventually, if enough people do this, it will put a dent in their pocket. And I feel like that is why, if you want one of these consoles, specifically PlayStation, because like I said, you get an Xbox, Game Pass is your way to go. Like, Microsoft is killing it right now when it comes to the consumer. Never mind the $300 price for their next-gen console. Truth be told, I honestly want, as a video game fan, I can honestly say that it wouldn't pain me to see the video game industry collapse, because I just feel like developers are becoming way too greedy as it is now. Like, they weren't satisfied with hundreds of millions of dollars. They were satisfied when they reached billions. And even now, we see that they're not satisfied with billions of dollars. And that's unfortunate because video games are one of the best outlets for any person, any age, any genre that you enjoy. But that's all I'm going to say on this video. Clearly, I'm not a fan of the price increase. And I guess the only thing to do now is to wait and see exactly what happens. Will consumers be anti-price increase paying $70 for a new game? Or will they just bite the bullet and continue paying an absurd amount of money for these games? At least if you're going to do it, do what I do. Buy the game, resell it, and recoup 90% of your buying. And then use that money next time to where all you're paying essentially is $10 or $20 for the next game. And repeat that over and over